Welcome to another episode of Sports with Nonga, and it has ended with Max Verstappen equaling the record of Sebastian Vettel and Ascari for 9 consecutive wins of a Grand Prix. It's been a long time coming. We have seen the domination and the guy and the way Max Verstappen has been thrashing almost everybody, showing his class, showing his dominance, his vigor, his love, his passion for the sport. And that's the number one. This guy here is the number one, and he has done it again for Red Bull Racing. A race which I've said a lot of times, marred or mirrored by a lot of things. Rain was a concern, tire choices, tire blankets, strategy, pit stops, all of that came into play today at the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. What a start. There's so much to talk about. I'll try to kind of minimize this and just kind of give you a crux. It's a rain start. So the rain is about to pour, and everybody is starting on slick tires. Everybody at the end of lap 1 is in the pit for the inters. Couple of teams take the gamble and stay out on softs. Alex Albon was one of them, but that did not go well because that meant everybody, the whole field jumbled up. We had Lando Norris. And of course the player and the teams and the drivers who had not gone in for the inters, you could see the lap time difference. The laps were like the inter was the right tire to be on, and that's kind of what you felt like. That's how it will kind of go about. But then that's not how it eventually happened. It was crazy with the rain for the start. It turned into a shower, and everybody wanted to get into for the Inter. The Red Bulls were running alternate strategies. It was Perez who led the way as the race settled down, while Verstappen had fallen back to 4th. So Verstappen stayed one more. He got into inters a lap later. That's what Alonso also did. Alonso was basically copying what Max was doing. Perez was on the alternate strategy. He gets the first. He gets the inter, and then he leads the Grand Prix as well. And Zhou Guanyu and Gasly were on top because they had also gone in for inters. So it was pretty clear that at the end of it, you could feel that, and that's when the race settled down, because then everybody got into inters. Then it basically, you could immediately see that it was getting drier and drier. Verstappen got in front of Perez as well pretty early on, and you saw that there's a drying line. There was a drying line immediately. You could see it, and then everybody started boxing for softs. So everybody gets onto slicks. The race is pretty much settled in my mind for that. For the majority of the time, you had the big concerns with Russell. The main kind of losers in the whole pack, I would say, were Albon first, and then Russell. Hamilton was back as well. Sainz, they lost a lot of places from the start, but then it was all up for grabs. It was all up for grabs when, again, the strategy came into picture with Max Verstappen with the soft option, and then Zhou Guanyu, and then the rain started to come again. So Zhou Guanyu crashed, and that brought out the red flag. But then that's not. There were a couple of crashes as well. Leclerc, Zhou Guanyu, and Logan Sargent. Logan Sargent was the number 1. He crashed out in the same spot that he had crashed yesterday. He sat in the exit or turn 8 for quite some time because he did not want to go back to his garage to face the mechanics, who he had given a lot of work. And again, he gave a lot of work. put this to get his car kind of repaired again from Monza. He was pretty much down. There's a lot I wanted to talk about Logan Sargent, I feel, eventually, but then James Wells said that there was a hydraulic leak that led to that issue. So it definitely makes sense why. But then I still feel Logan Sargent does not deserve that seat in the Williams. I feel there are better options for a team in ascendancy. You could see Albon. There's a much more. There are better drivers out there that Williams can get in for that seat. Leclerc, what a horrific Grand Prix for him. He had contact early. He went off. He had some floor damage, but he calls in. He gets into the pits. There's nobody waiting him for the inters. After and from the slicks to inters, there was nobody there. He just kind of waits for the inters to be put on. But this was you could feel the strategy is completely gone wrong there. He was going backwards. He couldn't fight, and then eventually they had to retire the car. Joe, after the rain started again kicking in again, they had to red flag for the crash that he had, because it was pouring at the end, almost like 7 to 8 laps, and he crashes. But then it was pouring absolutely, peltering there down and in the main straight, in the long straight. It was interesting that Max Verstappen at one point also was like, let's wait for inters and let's be on slicks. But then JP, the race engineer for Max Verstappen, basically simply saying you would rather want to be on the inters right now, Max. It was one of those strategies as well for Perez, where I felt, if you want to tell somebody that you're number 2, you do all of those things that Red Bull did eventually. They undercut, Max Verstappen undercut Sergio Perez to take the lead of the race with the inters at the start, and you could feel like, why is this happening? With like, this could have gone so many different ways. But then, eventually Sergio Perez finished P4 after receiving a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That was shocking to kind of understand. But yeah, he could have been on the podium. He was sitting P3 quite comfortably, but then that was not meant to be. Sergio Perez ends P4. There is some intervention that he would want to do with Christian Horner and with this team to kind of understand how is Max Verstappen preferred from on everything. But yeah, just say it, he's number 1. Fernando Alonso, of course, the man of the moment. He, the man who've been quietly kind of saying that, we are doing good. We have our upgrades. We'll see how this team kind of moves forward with the new upgrades after summer. And they banked on it. He was pretty quick. He was extremely quick. And Alonso, he does not leave a lot of space. The way he kind of tackled Sainz to kind of push him away, and they're taking him a turn 1 with that spray, that was amazing to watch. He ends his he got on the podium for P2. Pierre Gasly, if it's raining and there's a lot of chaos happening, if Perez had not got his 5-second penalty, it would have been Perez. But then because of that, the McLarens had lost their way, the Mercedes had lost their, Ferrari was nowhere. So it pretty much a lot of places up for grabs. And then Pierre Gasly found himself. He had a 5-second penalty as well. He had a 5-second penalty for himself, but then he served that in the pit lane. So that kind of helped him as well to get the podium. A couple of talking points for Ferrari. I think Ferrari are they're nowhere absolutely, to be very honest. I can't tell where they are. Are they improving from last season? Are they not? I don't seem to see Carlos Sainz has basically, or Carlos Sainz or Leclerc have been trying to kind of dictate the strategy that they should have, rather than the other way around, rather than the team telling what strategy is optimal and what everybody else is doing. But it seems like there is a lot of work to be done, and communication needs to be worked on. You can't have a car coming in for pit stop, even if it's a second before he's coming in, he's dived in the pit stop. You need to have the tires ready, no matter what. Yes, people will say that he called in after he dove in but it's a communication. Everybody's like, there are people watching. There are so many people. He had that's track, like you can see where the car is. And if you enter the pit lane, the first thing you tell, like, get the tires. He wants inters. So, and that kind of thing. Eventually the race at the end ended on hard tires after kind of the spray got really hard. But that's kind of interesting end to it. But Carlos Sainz fended off Carlos Sainz on Ferrari fended off Hamilton pretty well. Hamilton was all over him. I think there was a moment where they touched as well in the last lap in the first corner, turn one. Hamilton went for the lunge. Sainz was ready for his lunge and did the right thing and kind of protected his lead. He finished P5, takes the 10 points. Lewis Hamilton, from starting P13 to finishing P6, that was a lot of things that happened. He was on hards pretty early on. When everybody went on to slicks and so on, he was the only one that he was on hard, and so he continued his race and did not come in for the tire changes, and eventually finished P6. George Russell had a moment with Lando Norris where he says, because they touched, he had a left front puncher, which made him kind of he was then out of the race. Pretty tragic end on that one. But then Russell had a pretty, he didn't like the strategies and the calls that the team had made for him, because he basically felt that it was a podium place. And then he was like, he did radio this, like, I was expecting a podium, and how am I now in this position? Guys, come on. Lando Norris could be happy, should be happy, it all fell apart after the first lap. Like, he stayed longer for one more lap, and it was hard for them to come back from there. Finished P7. Albon finished P8. Oscar Piastri gets P9. Esteban Ocon takes the final point of this Grand Prix with the 10th. But Esteban Ocon should be happy. Like, he was P17 yesterday for the qualifying. So this whole rain and kind of gave him the chance to kind of come ahead, and that was nice. Lance Stroll P11, a little. I think he was in a race of his own. Haas, Gunther Steiner knew the fact that there was going to be a tricky race for them. He finished P12. Liam Lawson, he had a good showing. There was one moment where Liam Lawson was almost all over Leclerc, and he took over him. But then Leclerc had a problem, so he was nursing the car. Otherwise, it was a good moment to see Liam Lawson taking over a Ferrari. He finished ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. That's a very important moment. It'll be nice to see how he does in Monza as well. So Liam Lawson finished P13, Kevin Magnussen P14, Valtteri Bottas P15. George Russell did not finish. He got in the pits at the last laps. Zhou Yu, Leclerc, and Logan Sargent, as I've mentioned, did not finish this race. Max Verstappen's domination continues in the Dutch Orange Army contingent in the Grand Prix. The fans were electric. It was pouring, but then the fans were having a blast. Martin Garrix, I think he was playing some beautiful EDM or techno music for them. They were kind of buzzing. The whole place was buzzing. That was nice to see. It has started, but it's ended. Right, the summer before, we knew Max Verstappen will be hard to beat, and that's what's happened. Max Verstappen is really hard to beat still. Pierre Gasly. So that's one of the things. Like, we had McLaren as well, kind of coming up. If the race had been normal, McLaren would have ended up on the podium, in my opinion, with a Mercedes. But because of the rain and the strategies and the way it played out, eventually that's how the shaked out grid looks like. But it was a fun race, I would say. Like, as there was a lot of pit stops eventually. To be honest, and if I can give you a summary: Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, Zhou Yu, Yuki, Liam Lawson, Kevin Magnussen, they were the first to pit for the Intertire. Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, Esteban Ocon, Lando Norris, Esteban Ocon. These four pitted in the lap 2. Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton took a gamble, and they pitted a lap later. I think that's where they lost the positions. George Russell pitted a lap later. He pitted on the lap 4, which was even worse, in my opinion, along with Lance Stroll. That's why I think he was P17 or P18 at one point, George Russell. And then, you could see a grid which was then kind of calming down, and then everybody had to all 20 cars had to pit at lap 64 for hard tires. Basically everybody went for the hards after the red flag, and that's how it ended, with George Russell entering the pit at the end. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think? It was a race to remember, in my opinion. I literally enjoyed the kind of rain and the difference, the banking, how it works, how it's hard to kind of control. The gravel is so close. Perez went off as well. That was kind of interesting. I was like, what? And that's how we lost the lead as well to the Grand Prix. So that was kind of interesting, in my opinion, to see how this kind of panned out eventually. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this whole race? Who were you who was your driver of the day? Eventually, Fernando Alonso got the driver of the day. But I think Pierre Gasly should be given driver of the day, or Max Verstappen as well, because he's the one, and was unbeatable the whole way through. But yes, can't have everything, can you, Max? Let me know in the comment section, what do you think of the race? Do like this video, do share with your friends, and do subscribe to the channel. I love hearing from you. Like, what do you think about the race? Monza is coming up, Ferrari's backdrop. What happens? Does Max kind of blow them apart as well again? Does Alonso or Gasly do something, or does Lando finally have their win? The win is not that far for both Alonso or any other right now, in my opinion. Mercedes need to come back, have to have a much cleaner and stronger weekend to kind of see how this will go forward. But teams in ascendancy, a shaked up grid. Williams should be proud. They have a lot to look up to as well in Monza. That'll be interesting. Let me know in the comment section what do you think. Do like this video, do share, and do subscribe to the channel. I love hearing from you. Go out to Instagram as well, Sports with Monga. But I catch you for Monza, which is in a week. See you then.